Something absolutely massive has just happened in the Middle East, and it's sending shockwaves all across the globe. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is dead. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how this went down, what it means for Iran, and, maybe most importantly, why the fallout could end up right on your doorstep.
The first official word didn't come from Iran, it came from Mar-a-Lago. In this pretty stunning post, former U.S. President Donald Trump basically announced the death of a man who's been a major player on the world stage for nearly 40 years. His death immediately created this huge power vacuum, and that's setting the stage for some really intense uncertainty.
So how did we get here? Let's start with Section 1. A leader is dead. We're going to look at how this just world-changing news was finally confirmed, officially bringing a 36-year reign to an end.
Okay, so after hours of denials, dismissing all the rumors as psychological warfare, Iranian state television finally went live with the announcement. They confirmed it. The supreme leader was killed in an airstrike on his compound in Tehran, and tragically, several of his family members were killed alongside him. It was the definitive, shocking end to a rule that has shaped the modern Middle East for decades.
Which brings us to our second section, Operation Epic Fury. Look, this was not just some random airstrike. No way. This was a highly coordinated U.S.-Israeli mission with a very, very specific goal, what they call a decapitation strategy. It was designed to completely cripple the Iranian regime by taking out its entire leadership, all at once.
To really get why this strategy was so audacious, you have to understand the supreme leader's role. He was, as one analyst perfectly put it, the superglue holding the entire system together. He had the final say on everything. We're talking the military, the courts, foreign policy, even the nuclear program. The whole goal of Epic Fury was simple: remove that superglue and just watch the entire structure fall apart.
And it wasn't just Khamenei. The strikes also took out a huge chunk of the country's senior leadership. The defense minister, the head of the super-powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the secretary of the Defense Council were all confirmed killed. They effectively wiped out the regime's entire nerve center in one single move. Well, you can't just remove a king from the chessboard and expect nothing to happen. And that brings us to Section 3, the region on fire. Whatever was left of the Iranian regime promised the most intense offensive operation in its history. And, well, they delivered. They set the entire region ablaze. And this just shows you the sheer speed of the retaliation. I mean, within just 1 hour, missiles were already in the air. A few hours later, U.S. military bases across the Gulf were getting hit. By the end of the very first day, Iran had tried to close a critical global oil route and had launched over 100 ballistic missiles at Israel. Just incredible. The scope was just staggering. This wasn't military on military. As you can see, the retaliation was just indiscriminate. Sure, strikes hit the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, but they also hit a luxury hotel in Dubai and an apartment building in Tel Aviv. Even Oman, which is usually a neutral country, saw its main port get hit. This wasn't a contained conflict. It was chaos completely unleashed across the entire region. And this quote from a tourist in Dubai really brings home the human side of all this. One minute, you're in a luxury vacation spot. The next, it's a war zone. For millions of people across the Gulf, the conflict suddenly became terrifyingly real.
So, while the whole region was burning, what was actually happening inside Iran itself? That brings us to Section 4, Iran at a crossroads. Because for a nation already under so much pressure, the death of its leader was both a moment of profound crisis and, for a lot of people, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
The contrast here is just wow. It could not be more stark. On one side, you have the state declaring 40 days of mourning, officials vowing revenge, calling Khamenei a martyr. And then, on the other side, you have videos popping up online showing Iranians cheering from their balconies in Tehran and celebrating in the streets of Isfahan. For so many who had suffered under his rule, this was a moment of liberation.
So what happens now in this power vacuum? Well, officially, there's a process. A temporary 3-person council takes over until this powerful group of clerics called the Assembly of Experts can pick a permanent successor. But while that looks all neat and tidy on paper, the reality is it's a notoriously secretive process, and it's totally ripe for a massive power struggle behind the scenes. For the Iranian opposition, this is the moment. This quote is from Reza Pahlavi, who is the exiled son of the last Shah of Iran. He doesn't see this as an act of war. He sees it as a humanitarian intervention, a historic opportunity for the Iranian people to finally reclaim their country.
Okay, this brings us to our final section.
what comes next. Because as chaotic as things are in the Middle East right now, the really crucial point is that this conflict is already sending massive shockwaves all around the globe.
This breaks it down perfectly. First, energy, your wallet. Oil prices immediately jumped 5%. And with Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz, which carries a fifth of the world's oil, prices could spike way higher. Second, transit. Major shipping lanes, airspace, it's all disrupted. Third, this whole thing challenges the very idea of international law. And finally, it could kick off a new arms race, as other countries might decide that nuclear weapons are the only real guarantee of survival.
So here's the key takeaway, right? What happens in the Middle East does not stay in the Middle East. It has immediate, direct consequences for global energy markets, for supply chains, and for the entire international order. It actually affects the price you pay for gas and the stuff you buy at the store.
And that leaves us with the central question. With the old guard completely shattered, this massive power vacuum is opened up. Will the Iranian people seize this chance to shape a new future for themselves? Will a new hardliner just emerge from the ashes and take over? Or are we just entering a new, prolonged era of chaos? The answer, right now, is dangerously unclear.
This is Candour History. History as it happened, told with evidence, not opinion.